Hey everybody, welcome back to the Generative Edge. I'm Brandon, and I'm joined by my co-host Donovan Spronk and our executive producer Ian Masters today.
Wop.
Nice to be here.
Good to finally have you on camera, Ian.
Right.
I know, exactly. 6 months in and I joined the season finale.
That's great.
Well, it's great to finally have you. So, it has been quite a season, actually.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
What a roller coaster. So much has changed, actually.
Yeah, no kidding. I almost feel like even though I live and breathe all of this stuff every single day, I can't keep up with everything that's happening. But that's what we're here for. So we'll start talking about a little bit of the subject matter that we've covered in the last 6 months or so. Talk about maybe what's coming up in the next couple of years. But yeah, Donovan, I'll just open the floor to you. Any thoughts on the last 6 months?
Firstly, it's intimidating being amongst these guys that eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. I have learned a lot myself. I think one of the take-homes for me has just been getting executives in the room, clients in the room, and just learning from one another, I guess. So for me, that's a huge take-home. But I think I want to ask Ian, since he's getting some FaceTime today, just take us through, Ian, the whole journey. I just look back at where we started, which was just a way to talk about the subject, and where we are today, and it's changed so much in 6 months. Ian, maybe you just want to recap on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It really has moved so much in the last 6 months as well. If you think when we started out, we were really just talking about generative AI, and in that 6 months period, we've moved on to agentic AI and moving towards autonomous AI as well. I think the podcast has done a fantastic job of capturing what's going on in the market, in the sense that, we started off with kind of a bit of myth busting. What is generative AI? What can it do? What can't it do? As it was then with the technology. But it really is moving so fast that it's been a godsend to have something like this coming out on a weekly basis, drip feeding information and, helping people keep up to speed with what's available today in the market, technologically wise, and where we think it's going to head perhaps in, the next couple of years. But I think we've realized that everyone's facing the same challenges, or at least it seems like the majority of people are facing the same challenges. It's, where do you start? How do you set out a clear purpose for generative AI? Where are you going to use it? What's it actually going to do? What's it going to deliver? How do you budget for those things? Because again, shiny new tech ball comes rolling through your field of vision, and all of a sudden you've got to find money to go out and, put it in place, or at least try it and see if it's going to add value to your business. And then, of course, there's the underlying data challenges. In order for generative AI to be worthwhile, I think every enterprise is realizing that they have to sort out their underlying data platform. And we can talk about that a bit more in a moment. And then, obviously, scaling. You find a use case, or you find a use for generative AI within your business. Great. But how do you then really scale it out so that it's available across the enterprise, available to all users, so that everyone can benefit from it, and you see the kind of productivity and efficiency gains that you're expecting to see? And I think that leads on to for me personally, being involved in a number of projects, a lot of projects, in fact, across all of EMEA. The biggest challenge I'm still seeing is proof of value. And it's funny. I'm, like others, probably not you guys in the room, but, 30 years in the IT industry. And I reflect back to when I started selling lots of little Windows utilities, and people downloading their 30-day evaluations. The one thing that happened back then, people downloaded it and they would set a set of KPIs, what they were expecting to achieve in that 30 days. And that was kind of the crux of go, no go at the end, right? I think with generative AI and AI, it's so exciting and the opportunity is so big. People have almost jumped in, and started playing, which is a good thing, but without necessarily thinking about what they're trying to prove, what value they're trying to get, or what the measure of success is. So, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey over the last 6 months.
100%.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of work that goes into figuring out even what those KPIs are and how you're going to measure them in the first place. Things like usage volume, adoption percentages in certain teams, but generative AI has so many varying use cases that it's hard to lump all of them together into one category. You almost have to take it one product at a time, which is more difficult.
100%. And I mean, during the last 6 months, we've had some really good discussions on exactly this, like, where do I need to put my data? Let's not forget the talent agenda. I think this is a massive component. We talk about executives having clear vision, strategy. How do we want to use this? Do we want to do it? How do we measure it? And you mentioned that as well. I think this is vitally important. Have a plan. I know we've even brought our own generative AI leads within the Deloitte member firms to the discussion as well. That's been massively eye-opening. The teams want to be able to use it. We spoke about starting with 160 use cases, narrowing them down to 12, I think, or 16, we said, that would really drive value in the organization. So I think having this clear view come together, really, really important. I think we also addressed that this is not just a CDO, CIO agenda, but this is an enterprise-wide initiative. It's almost a culture change. It's not just another project. It's something that really needs the businesses to come together at scale. So the talent agenda plays massively into that. And I really want to hammer in on this. We spoke about what skills we need. We've recently spoken about how do we get adoption internally from the team, the role that middle management plays as a massive like the driving force, right? You got to empower people to use the technologies. You got to play with it. You got to test. You got to do new things. You got to build it into your day to day. Again, measurables, and then show what value that brings, and then basically put that on broadcast to the rest of the teams and start to measure that incremental value. So all of this has been like massively interesting for me, let alone the regulatory framework that we also discussed. I don't know, Brandon, if you've got anything to add in the security space, regulation, like, I mean, there's so many moving pieces in this space at the moment.
Maybe on like a very non-technical note, it's just like a lot of the regulation around generative AI and AI in general. It's not just generative AI, but AI generally speaking. There's a lot of like maybe fear or nervousness in the European market, for example, that regulations will sort of cut off our ability to innovate, or that other countries are better at innovation because they don't have as many safeguards or guardrails up. And it's something that I didn't expect to hear at the beginning because I think that, you know, security is so important, and doing all of this correctly and ethically is also really important. But there is that fear that now we're getting into this sort of like AI race where different countries are trying to do things better. They're putting a lot of like public funds into startups that work on AI models and AI initiatives. And yeah, I think probably a lot of the regulatory space is going to be two sides. One is we need to innovate and we need to be faster than everyone else. And the other side is going to be we need to do this correctly and safely. And it's going to be interesting to see how those two sides sort of fight in the next couple of years.
It almost feels like in order for us to innovate, you need to remove the regulations and allow people to play and innovate. But when you come to the actual adoption of the technology, then you need the regulatory frameworks in place to make sure it's done in the right way, secure, ethical, etc. But you're right. Having too many regulations and compliance needs in place will hamper at least, you know, the innovation that can come out of it.
And this is a big challenge, I think, for most enterprises to find that balance, at least in the beginning. But of course, security, compliance, regulatory frameworks are vitally important to making sure that we're doing business in a trustworthy, ethical manner. And of course, we promote that heavily at this forum as well. Look, we love talking about this. So generate responsibly. We could talk about this all day. I think we spent 10 minutes before going live on this call, and I'm going to ask this one question, and then you guys can talk to us what you think about the future. The future might be on the back of this question. But we had this question from our listenership come through, and I'm going to ask it because it provoked some discussion on us. It says, can GenAI truly automate complex business tasks? Open-ended question mark statement. If you can give me your view, Brandon, Ian, in 20 seconds, can it do the job we think it can do?
In one word, no.
And that's the end of the podcast.
With some caveats, yeah. No, I think like literally on the first episode, there's like a voice clip of me somewhere on like a trailer that's like, yeah, generative AI in some ways is this revolutionary technology, and in other ways it isn't. So there's a lot of stuff that we are currently using generative AI for that is done better by other AI models, more efficiently, more accurately.
Sure, yeah.
And this is something also that I brought up with Stephanie, is that language is an imperfect medium for communicating logic, business logic, and things that you typically use in these like underlying programs or whatever. So no matter how good the language gets, it's not necessarily going to be this perfect autonomous system. If you can imagine a single person or even a group of people being autonomous, just communicating using language, you lose information, converting thought into language. Sorry, that got really deep.
Wow.
But so that's
I'm gonna tell my wife I love her when I get home.
yeah. So
Be
that's
very clear.
That's my philosophy on like complex business problems. But of course, other things that like look complex can be broken down into simpler tasks, and those simpler tasks can be done by generative AI. Yeah. So, Ian, I'm going to open up the floor to you because I just said a lot of like word salad.
Sure.
No, and I guess my view's slightly different, right? I my comment was not yet.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to the question.
Okay.
But I think we're heading in that direction. But Brandon makes a number of key points, which is we need a lot of different models. And not only do we need the big models from the big players in the market that exist today that are kind of good, and I hate the word general use, but you know what I mean? You can kind of broadly use them. But we're going to need to see the advancements in some industrial specific models, because I think then with an agentic type workflow, something which is, and we touched on this, but before we started recording, the kind of something that is self-reflective, that starts analyzing its own results and looking back to see whether it can improve, and therefore being self-reinventing. So it actually starts thinking about the process as opposed to just performing the process. And that's where I think, we want to see it go in the next couple of years. I don't know. I guess my view is not yet, and I think we will. Will it be perfect? Not necessarily. But I think we are going to see, over the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of autonomous AI implementations that are completely self-reflective and are able to self-iterate to make it better.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if the Industrial Revolution is anything to go by, the more and more automated it becomes, the more efficient it is, right? So I would agree with that prediction, if you will. I think one of the key take-homes that we saw in the last couple of episodes was that having your data accessible in one place is key.
Yeah.
Right? If you've got it in 50 million different places, there's no way some autonomous genius is going to be able to run through every API, every framework, and access every bit of your data. So already for a lot of our clients, we're seeing this drive towards putting key data in one place, using the power of the cloud, of course, some strain, in virtual private cloud. But of course, it is a really key factor in making all of this happen in the future.
It's been interesting as well, actually, just on that point, that generative AI has been a real catalyst for that, because this is not new. I think we've all been preaching about the need for businesses to centralize data pools and make it accessible to everyone. But it's only been since generative AI sort of really started to take hold in the enterprise that I've seen a big shift for enterprise customers to start looking at that consolidation.
100%.
In a serious way, and then putting some force behind it. Yeah.
No, I think AI has now been taken quite seriously across the organizations at large. 100%. With that being said, we come to a close of season 1, where we wanted to literally crack it wide open, which I feel we did. We accomplished that. It's been quite a journey. We're excited to kick off season 2 in the near future, which we've agreed we want it to be way more client focused and centric. So we already have a backlog of people that are in the thick of it that we will get on the podcast to really be talking through their experiences, their journeys, and really like walking through the weeds of what a typical day-to-day looks like in scaling AI across an organization. So really excited for that. I think it's going to be super tangible, really practical, and I'm just so excited to continue to do this with you guys. And we are super excited about season 2, and I think it goes without saying that Ian will have to sign us off today.
Excellent. Well, remember everyone, generate responsibly.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to part 1. I'm going to disappear now and let Donovan and Vyas take over for me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, welcome back for part 2 of the season finale of the Generative Edge. I'm Stephanie. I'm one of the executive producers and Brandon's better looking substitute
Much
for
better
this this conversation. And I'm being joined right now by our amazing co-hosts, Donovan
Hey.
and Vyas. Thanks for being here today, you guys.
Cool. Yeah, good to be here. It's been a great season, right?
It's been a long
Indeed.
season.
Indeed, and for the first time in this season, I'm actually remotely doing this, which is again
That's
a
true.
spectacular
I
sign.
know.
We miss you. We miss you.
It's
Yes.
crazy. I'm glad that we've been able to make this work. Like, I don't know, for viewers at home, Vyas literally flies here to our studio in the Czech Republic every time. So kudos to Vyas, of course. So thank you for being with us remotely today for
Legend.
the first time this season. But we've done a lot this season. That is the theme of this season finale today. And I really just wanted to start off by asking you guys, what are some of your standout moments from season 1? Because you guys have done most of the interviews. You've talked to so many great folks during this first season. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about what really stood out most to you. So Vyas, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on this one.
Give it to us.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm just reflecting as you asked me that question, Stephanie, and there's so many things which stands out, and probably I'll pick 2 of them. The first one is, for me, the conversation we have had with Telecom Serbia. And it's actually fascinating to understand the real life challenges of actually implementing something like a generative AI in an enterprise and knowing the importance of how it would change a culture and understanding that upfront from someone who has actually done it and let the audience know. I think that was my biggest standout moment to begin with. And then the second one is some of the offline conversations I've had about the podcast with our viewers. And that's been a standout as well, because I've had so many requests to cover topic A, topic B, things like trustworthy AI. How do you and I think about going from a POC to production? What are the other things we should be worried about? Which I'm glad that we were able to include in the podcast, but I didn't expect all of those questions to come in through our viewers when I started the podcast along with Dom, right? So I think those are my 2 standout call outs for this podcast, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I'm listening to Vyas and I'm thinking, I mean, there's been so much content. I think, firstly, I have to say, I never thought I would be on the learning journey here with everyone. And I feel like I've probably received the most education out of everyone that's been on this. It's been phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I never expected that. I mean, you know me, Steph, we have great ideas all the time to do things. And we said, hey, well, let's do this podcast. You know, it should be fun just to give something back and, you know, be able to talk about this topic. But then reflecting on how much information over the last how many months it's been, for me, that's been massive. And, you know, just even on some of the more recent discussions, we've reflected on the fact that this journey started with generative AI and chatbots, and now we're all the way over to this autonomous, you know, agentic type of discussion.
Yeah.
And so much has happened in that space that it's almost been hard to keep up. And I've been absolutely grateful to have this space of time really just to talk about these things and just for myself to keep finger on the pulse of this discussion. So for me, that's, you know, just taking a 10,000 foot view of it has been a massive learning opportunity for me. But, you know, I think I've really enjoyed the discussions around data strategy. Again, touching a little bit on the Telecom Serbia pitch, but on so many others, we've touched on this as well. Companies have been on this data strategy, you know, roadmap for a while, and this generative thing just sort of hits it bam in the middle. Like, how do you pivot? How do you deal with that? What's needed? How is that hitting your C-suite? How is that shaping your priorities? For me, that was an incredible discussion to be having. I loved the fact that Jan Michalski from Deloitte was present as our DCE generative AI leader. For the listeners, that's a huge cluster of countries in Europe. So it was nice to hear the sort of tone from the top of also being vulnerable and, you know, curtain drawn back a little bit as to how we're looking at things. And I just remember him saying that the influx of ideas and use cases they received was in the hundreds. And they ended up simplifying it to say these 15 or 16 cases, and it was all around the day-to-day process and how to optimize and bring efficiency into your day-to-day processes. And of course, when we talk about technology and innovation and all this forward thinkingness, we always talk about people, process, and technology. And I just felt like in a lot of those conversations, those three elements were coming together massively. I mean, there's just so much. I love the conversation we had with the Constellation guys. Really forward thinking stuff. One of the takeaways for me, and this is not to be sales pitchy, it was just one of the headlines that I remember. And it just resonated so much because I see it with my clients as well. He's saying if you want to be embracing these technologies, you've got to consolidate your data in the cloud. That was a blanket statement, that
from
came
the
out of
experts,
out of their research. And I think this is why we have these conversations, because in that, just to frame that statement again, we were saying that the rate of innovation is far exceeding the rate at which businesses can adopt technology. So cloud becomes an instrumental part of that ecosystem, to empower and democratize back to your business and allow business users to embrace these technologies. So for me, that was a lot, but those were some of the standout things that really just still stick in front of mind for me. Yeah.
The more you speak, Don, the more things which come out, right? So for me, I'm reflecting like every session we have had, and I was conscious not to call out anyone because the fact that every session was so informative,
That's great.
it kind of raises the bar for ourselves in terms of what to expect in our season 2 as well, right? So which is a fantastic thing. But I think on the whole, I think there are two aspects which stand out as this is real. And for me, when we started the journey, this was about how do we demystify. And I think after season 1, a lot of our customers were already using that. And this is something which we learned over through this journey, which is the most important takeaway, right? So if you're not doing it, you're missing out. And the second one is that even though everyone talks about it, it's not an easy thing to solve, right? So you called out very specifically the data strategy. And boy, how have we realized that without having the right data strategy, even having this conversation is not meaningful.
100%.
And how not aligning people, process, and tools will not get us there. I think we've kind of unblocked and uncovered a lot of these topics as we discussed through, which is what for me stands out in terms of how that culminated with customer actually coming and talking about that and exactly showcasing those viewpoints, right? So totally +1 on what you said, Don.
100%. And actually, while you're talking now, I'm also thinking about another headline, and I'm going to call it out and then shut up there. I think Holger as well was basically saying, and I love this, the way he said it just as it is, so German. I love it. Basically, that this is not another AI project. This is it's a culture change. It's a business initiative. It's not the agenda of the CTO or the CIO. It's an everyone agenda, and it's got to sort of factor into the woodwork, the tapestry of every business unit across the organization. And I think that just resonated with me as well. We see it, from the most junior folk right to the senior leadership, all playing, testing, trying to bring efficiencies into the day-to-day. And organizations really need to be looking at this thing as how do we create space for people to really adopt these technologies into their day-to-day. So another big headline for me as well.
Yeah. I feel like this is actually a good tie-in to another question that I wanted to ask you guys. Basically, we've talked, as you guys have mentioned just now, about the journey that generative AI and all of these like tech and business things coming together have been on for us in this first season, the last 6 months to a year. But of course, it's been going on a little longer than that, and I'm sure will continue. So I wanted to ask you guys, where do you see the intersection of the tech and the business side of things headed, let's say in the next year or two? So without getting too tangible of predictions, but where do you guys see things heading? So Don, I'll start with you and then over to Vyas.
Again, I think Holger at Constellation had some really good noteworthy predictions at this level. I certainly don't want to predict the future. I mean, I'm a practical guy. I see more and more in the day-to-day the use of these tools. And actually just yesterday with my wife, my brother-in-law asked her to prepare a CV for him. And she's not an avid generative AI user. And I said, hey, why don't you try some of these tools? And she's like, no, I'll just kind of do it from memory. I said, well, just download it and just try it. And she built it in 5 minutes for him. And she was like, wow. And now she's pinging me the whole day how she's just using these technologies for everything else she needs to do. And I think that's the sign of the fact that people from all walks of life are now playing with these technologies. I give you another example. On the weekend, I was setting up a drum kit because I actually am a big audio guy. And I was trying to do something complex on an electronic drum unit. And this gentleman came up to me and said, what are you trying to do? And I explained to him. And he just typed it in to his phone, and the phone gave me exactly the steps I need to do and, where to find it. So it's becoming like really real. Like every day, people are thinking about it, front of mind. I think for business, there will still be some hoops to jump through in terms of making sure that technologies are compliant and fit the framework of the particular business. But at the same time, I think there is a push to allow these technologies to the broader user group. I think fluency education will be a massive part of the next couple of months for sure. And certainly just being practical with how people are starting to use the tools. I think over the next, let's say 6 to 12 months, there'll be a level of efficiency and automation that you will see being definitely on the strategic roadmaps for a lot of clients. Of course, the use cases in day-to-day will continue to be built out probably by AI practitioners. I'm not quite sure we're there on the agentic side yet or on the autonomous side. I think, this is always the topic with AI. Although I've seen some great demos already in banking, already coming from AWS and some stuff that, we're showcasing to clients and workshopping with clients. But, I still see that as a year and a half to 2 years out before it becomes really, really real. Because the topic of trust, when you're offloading things to LLMs and you need to trust the outputs thereof in the day-to-day, I think that'll take a lot of time still. So being really practical to answer your question, I think the next 6 months will be, really how to spread and, create culture in the business and using these technologies, promoting, encouraging people, promoting war stories within organizations, within small teams. And I think on the longer term, certainly a higher level of automation, agentic, autonomous will be there, but it's still a little in the clouds for me personally. Again, not making any predictions.
Well, I was going to say, Vyas, as the technology leader for AWS.
Yeah, he'll be like, Don, you're wrong. It's here already.
What's your take on that?
I think it's amazing to see where we have reached, even when we started the season to where we are right now. The amount of progress this specific concept of generative AI has made, right from we've heard about stories about DeepSeek, how do we think about chain of thoughts, how do we think about making it more accessible? I am more bullish that this is going to change the way we work going forward. Some of the practical thoughts, these again, I don't want to say my predictions, but more or less to say where I see a vision as to where this will head. I still recollect the first topic when we started this podcast. And I strongly believe that point even today that we are in the very early stages of adoption of this technology, right? We are still in that radio to television transition moment, which I still would like to call. And we don't know anything else other than reading the news and flipping that at this point in time. And some of the newer technologies that are actually, like including the agentic AI, is actually helping us cross that chasm. And I'm more bullish now than I was when we started this podcast as to where this whole technology will take us into. Some of the areas where I would see is perhaps how agentic AI is going to change the way we automate things within the business. And call it my prediction is the wrong word, but my vision is that at some point in time, we might not have too many user interfaces. More often than not, you would probably have someone call into a contact center kind of an application, which is your primary use case, and AI will speak to you, and you can ask the questions the way you want. For some, the way to get to a data would be a lot more deeper in terms of asking multiple questions. But for some others who exactly know what they want, the interaction could be a lot shorter. And this is what AI will bring in terms of personalization as to what information is needed. And that would change the art of making business decisions even more, right? So this is something which I see as a vision, which probably right now we're still thinking about typical ways of thinking about applications or business applications, which will change
Yeah.
entirely.
Totally.
The second area where I see is more on being a technologist, how this will change the mindset of development, right? So in general, software development lifecycle. And again, I think we are in very early stages where I see a lot more possibility. For example, today we just think about either agile or waterfall models. We talk about requirements gathering, we talk about design, we talk about development, testing. What would happen in the coming years could be totally different, where all you need to worry about is actually putting your requirements right,
Yeah.
and everything else is actually
And we're back after some technical difficulties involving tea. We are back
It
for
happens.
our
It happens.
season finale discussion. So, Vyas, you were just talking about basically what our predictions are for tech and business moving on in 2025 and beyond. So, why don't you go ahead and bring us back to where you were?
was talking about how this is going to change our software development lifecycle. And I think that's an important area where I see huge changes. It's talking about how today we think about requirements gathering, design, development, testing, taking into production. I see that whole process significantly change going forward, right? So you're now thinking about how do I do requirements gathering better? And then how agentic AI will now use the requirements and churn out everything right from design, and then rapidly and continuously keep optimizing it is something which I look forward for. And I think that is another thrilling thing which I'm excited to see perhaps in the next coming years. So those are my two areas which I would look for, Stephanie. And
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yep, that's happening quickly as well. More and more subscriptions out there for efficient code building, new IDEs. This week I've been looking at that are automatically bringing these things in. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one, Vyas.
I definitely feel like the pace of change and innovation in this tech space right now is just crazy.
It's crazy.
And it's really exciting. And that's why I'm really happy that we have this platform and this podcast so that we can break these things down as they happen. Like,
Sure.
Whether it's the hype cycle stuff, whether it's, this is going to be the new hot thing, we can really take the excitement of it, but also like the measured approach for enterprises so that we can really, leverage it in the best
100%.
way possible. So on that note, we are at the season finale here for season 1. I wanted to just ask you guys, I know, we did it finally. I wanted to ask you, what are you guys most looking forward to as our esteemed co-hosts of the Generative Edge podcast? What are you guys looking forward to most for season 2? And Vyas, I'll go ahead and start with you.
I'll keep it very simple, right? So season 1 for us more demystifying generative AI, because technology has just started showing some signs of productivity, right? So now season 2, this is real, and it's all about making things real. And season 2, I'm so excited to start thinking about getting a lot of our customers who are using generative AI, and then using that as an insight for others to start thinking differently is what I'm looking forward for in season 2, Stephanie.
Yeah, I totally echo that. +1. I think that's the today's lingo on that. Definitely clients. We're already lining up a bunch of clients, so really excited about that. Also, Deloitte and AWS co-sponsor a number of the big events, Cloud Day Summits across Europe. So the Generative Edge will be scaled to those platforms as well. So we're looking to, be roaming the corridors of all these events. We'll have teams out there, taking the pulse of what clients, customers, people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis using these technologies. So we hope to feed that content as well back into this forum. and hopefully take some insights away from that. So we're thinking big. We're thinking how, to Vyas's point, how do we get like really, really real and show you what's really happening, what people are really doing with these technologies. So for us, season 2 is all about that, and really, really looking forward to it. It's been an exciting season 1. Crazy, but I'm really even more looking forward to season 2, especially with you guys. You're the best.
I say,
That's awesome. Looking forward for that. And how would it be to do this live podcast in one of the summits, Tom?
It's
Let's look forward for
happening
it.
already. It's planned for the first one. If I can say, we'll be
why
live.
not?
We'll be live at the first Central European Summit, which I'm very excited about, in Katowice in Poland.
Yeah.
So that just actually shows you just the pure growth of the cloud business in general, but specifically AWS in the Central European region. So really excited to be there. I know, Vyas, you'll be there as well. So we've got a booth set up.
Yeah.
We'll be live on air there as well and interviewing people. But more than just in Central Europe, we'll be scaling out a bunch of booths to other summits as well. So really excited for that.
So we'll actually get to meet people, like our listeners. We can meet people face to face and show them the generative edge. And
100%, yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, this has been honestly a dream come true this first season. It's been so much fun working on it with you guys, with our entire producing team, the studio team, just everybody that's been involved on both Deloitte side, AWS side. Honestly, it's just been so much
really
fun.
Really fun.
And I'm looking forward to coming back bigger, better than ever for season 2. Go big or go home, baby. That's
100%,
it.
100%.
I just want to add, I want to thank the Deloitte team. I mean, what a great experience this has been. And I think together we are changing minds and how the business moves, especially in this direction. So I'm extremely proud to be part of this and continuing to look forward for our continued journey in season 2.
So it goes without saying, Stephanie, you're moderating today, but Stephanie reviews every piece of content, all the editing, all the post-production with the team. So you are a lifesaver and a rock star. So we really appreciate you. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Happy,
Indeed.
honestly, happy to do it.
And of course, special call out to Vansh and Ian as well.
Oh,
Oh
so
my
yeah.
gosh, without them, would we
Legends.
have done this season at all? So thank you all, and
Absolutely.
looking forward for the continued journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, on that positive note,
Sign us out.
yeah, guys, until next time, generate responsibly.